Hi everybody, I'm now a dad. Maybe you remember how all this works? When last we left you, I posted a quick little video that I was about to go to the hospital because we were about to have a baby. Yay! What a ride! That was April 10th. It was Here's the story. We went to doctor's office just for a regular checkup, just to make sure everything was going right. We still were a few weeks away. Nothing really was showing that it was going to be any sooner than that. We just weren't ready and the baby wasn't ready to come out. So we were making plans to do some yard work, to finish up some projects. We had started some projects because we had so much time left. We went to the doctor's office and Elizabeth's blood pressure was stupid high, like really, really high. And we didn't realize just how stupid high it was until the doctor came in and said, okay, we're going to send you over to the hospital to labor and delivery. What? We were going to go buy plants and plant in the yard. And I've got the nursery's not quite ready. Wait, what? We went over to the hospital and after several hours, they were able to get her blood pressure low enough so they felt okay, sending us back home long enough to really just schedule things. She was on bed rest. She wasn't doing anything. I spent the next day, half day probably, I don't even remember, just getting stuff ready and running around the house trying to finish up projects and clean litter boxes and get somebody to take care of the cats and do all these crazy things because we were going to the hospital the next day to have a baby. Yay! So we get to the hospital at our scheduled time and apparently they weren't ready. It was a busy day. There were a lot of people having babies that day. Who knew? Wow, crazy. So we waited for quite a while before we could even get back into where we needed to go. And even then, they sent us directly back to their triage system, which we weren't supposed to go to because we were scheduled, but they didn't have a place for us. So they sent us to triage. We were in this tiny little triage room for probably 4 hours. They went ahead and they administered the first dose of medicine to pre-induce because we were so far away from being ready. They had to ripen the cervix. There's all sorts of things I learned here. That went okay, but we were there for 4 hours. 4 hours. We finally were able to get into one of the labor and delivery rooms, which was great. It was so much more room, and there was a soft place for me to sit and even lie down at times, and we were all excited. We were, all right, things are moving ahead. Let's go do this. And they came in, they gave the second dose of the drug to kind of help things along, and that's when things started going crazy. Not long after that second dose of the drug, Elizabeth started having contractions pretty much every 30 seconds. It was a nonstop thing. They weren't like hard contractions, but they were just small enough and they were noticeable. And they noticed that every time she was having a contraction, our baby's heart rate was dropping. And after a little while of this, I actually called the doctor in and checked it out, and we were nowhere near ready to deliver. And basically, the doctor said we need to do a C-section. The baby's not going to tolerate a delivery, which is terrifying to hear. It's terrifying. Within just a few minutes, we were whisked back to a surgical suite and things just started flying. People were just running all over the place and getting things ready. And I was sitting out waiting. I had to sit and wait while they got Elizabeth ready. So I was just sitting out there in this little, there's literally just like this little 5-foot cubicle where I was just sitting in my little blue bunny suit and mask and everything, just waiting until he said I could come back. It was, So we come back and things start happening. C-section goes well. Elizabeth is drugged up and numb. She doesn't even feel a thing. And the next thing you know, I look over and there is our baby sitting right over there. They're like, Dad, do you want to see the baby? I'm like, yes. So I go over and I see the baby and he looks great. He's just a little kid. And he makes a little cry and he doesn't do much else. He's just like sitting there checking everything out and he just looks amazing. I mean, yeah, you hear all that stuff about newborns, they have all this stuff. Sure, he's got all that stuff, but he still just looks awesome. We took pictures, all the things like that. Everything was fine. Elizabeth got a little sick from the anesthesia, but that happens sometimes. But we were able to go over and hold the baby, hold our son. We were wheeled into recovery and we were taking pictures and holding our son. And Elizabeth was still a little sick, so she couldn't do as much as she wanted to at that time. But we were able to kind of get her to where she could hold him a little bit. And they had hold it off doing a couple of little tests so that we could kind of take that time. And they finally did one of the tests. And the next thing we know, the nurse is yelling critical values and running out of the room. What? So yeah, Elizabeth and I were just kind of there in shock, wondering what's going on. And they rushed around, they did some stuff, and they had to get more tests like really quickly done. And they did them, and it wasn't any better. And that's when they called intensive care. And we're like, what's going on? Holy crap! Turns out his blood sugar was dangerously low, like dangerously low, like it was really low. It was weird because everything else seemed fine. Everyone that saw him was like, he's asymptomatic except for this. But we had to take care of that. So next thing you know, we're going up to intensive care. I had to go up with Caden. Elizabeth couldn't go. She had to stay behind. So I went up, and we just kind of had to split up at that point. So I went up to intensive care, and the people in intensive care were freaking amazing. Those nurses and doctors and everybody there, just wonderful. They handled everything. They explained everything that was going on, why they needed to do this, what needed to be done, what the process is going to be, what we needed to do. They're amazing, amazing people. I can't even, wow, they're... So the next couple of days pretty much consisted of me splitting time on the 8th floor NICU unit and the 2nd floor recovery unit where Elizabeth was staying. With the C-section, she couldn't really get around much, especially that first day. I could get her up there in the wheelchair for a while, and we would do some nursing and feeding. There was a breast milk bank so that we were able to give him good breast milk that was donated, and that was great. That was an amazing help since Elizabeth couldn't be with him all that time. So that was great. He wasn't getting better. So I was up there as much as I could. I would be upstairs with him as much as I could, and with Elizabeth as well, so that I could be with them. And I would wheel Elizabeth up when I could. And when she just couldn't get up there, I would just still go up there. I would just spend time with him as much as I could. 2 days pretty much solid like that. At the point where the nurses finally just said, you have to sleep. I think that's when we realized that I hadn't slept more than maybe an hour in like 48 hours or something like that. Something like that. What really broke me was when he just wasn't able to gain weight or keep food down or anything, and his values weren't getting better. So they put a feeding tube down his nose, and that, at that point, that broke me. I will never forget, like after 2 days and 1 hour of sleep and seeing that happen and him screaming, and oh my God, broke me on the ground sobbing. It was, just done. It wasn't in NICU I was sobbing. I waited until I got back to the room. I didn't break down in the middle of NICU. That would have been unfortunate. But they finally forced me to get some sleep. The nurses downstairs actually put a sign on our door and said, let this man sleep. Because I just wasn't sleeping. Anyway, it was just rough. You know, there was just no good news. It wasn't bad news, but there was no good news. He was stable, but he wasn't good. And that was so hard to deal with. For a while, it was really, really rough. But he was there for several days. They were hoping he would improve fast enough so that he would be able to come home with us when Elizabeth was discharged, but it just wasn't going to happen. We were stressing out. How are we going to do this, living on the other side of town and him being here? And it was really stressing us out. Unfortunately, there's a Ronald McDonald House family room there where they have just basically a couple of small bedrooms and a kitchen area where parents who have babies in the NICU can kind of stay. You can only stay there a couple of days, but it was a great help, and we were fortunate enough to get one of those rooms. There were only 4 rooms, and we were able to get one of them, and that was great. The better news is not long after that, his numbers suddenly started increasing like on the reg and getting where they needed to be, and everybody was really, really positive. And within a day and a half of us getting into that room at Ronald McDonald House, the pediatrician said he's ready to come home. What? So we spent a week in the pediatric intensive care unit with our new son, and we finally got to bring him home. And I've been here with him and Elizabeth ever since. So for the past 6 weeks, it's been a good solid maternity leave, just kind of spending time and taking care of our kid and doctor's appointments and going all and doing things and just raising a baby, and there's a baby. We're finally getting to the point where he's like smiling and it's not gas, because the boy can get gassy, y'all. The boy can get gassy. Spit up's no joke. It's not. Or for him, we started calling it the Bellagio. We would call it Bellagio whenever he would get to that point, because it was this amazing, incredible fountain of of fluid coming from his mouth into the world, from where you would think his stomach, but the volumes seemed unreal. How is that a fountain, a Bellagio fountain? Other than that, though, he's great. We take walks around the neighborhood. I carry him around. Elizabeth carries him around. We sing songs to him. We do all the things that parents should do for this kid. And he's awesome. And I'm a dad. He does kind of look like a middle-aged accountant right now. No. So I used to sing him a song about how he looked like a middle-aged accountant. I just made it up and sang him a song about how he looked like a middle-aged accountant. But then he would always like get upset and scream at me. So I changed it so he looks more like Elton John. He does kind of look like Elton John. You know, in that phase Elton John had where he had just kind of a thinning thing, you know? Anyway, so that's been our journey. It's been quite the emotional and physical roller coaster over the past 6 weeks. And also thank you to everybody. You know, there were a bunch of people who had heard about what was going on, who were friends, or maybe we posted something on Facebook with our families and they had heard about it and they were super supportive. They would bring us food or send us food or just kind of just be available, just to be a friend and to be an ear, especially in that time with the NICU. We had several people who had kids, were also in intensive care, who messaged me and were there. I could at least talk to a little bit, who understood what it was like, and they were great. It was great. And to all the families that are still in NICU, man, hang in there. We met a family. Child was born at, what was it? It was at 28 weeks, I think was what it was. No, 24 weeks. 24 weeks. They had been in NICU for 8 weeks already and had another 8 weeks to go before they were thinking they were going to be ready to go home. I can't even imagine, because the parents have to go on with their life. She would just come in when she could on the weekends. You have to go on with life and work and have your family and just to be there. And she was so wonderful and had such a positive attitude about it. And a lot of that comes from the people working in NICU, the nurses and doctors there. It's just an amazing thing. While we're on it though, our healthcare system needs some work. You should see the bill for a week in NICU. If we didn't have insurance, if Elizabeth didn't have some awesome insurance from her work, wow. Just wow. Ridiculous. 6 figures, y'all. 6 figures. Anywho, yeah, that's a whole other video. So, yeah, I am getting at the point where it's time to stop the paternity leave and get back to the other things that I'm doing. You know, it's just been really tough. We are at the point where we've been feeding him every 2 hours, and because of the spitting up thing, we have to keep him sitting upright. So you feed him, you sit him upright for a while, and then by the time you have to go get a taco and swallow a taco from the kitchen or something, it's time to feed him again. It's been, whew. But we're ready to try to get things back up and running. So we're going to get stuff back up and running really soon. In fact, I'm going to be doing Star Trek again this coming Tuesday, May 28th. We're going to do our next Star Trek thing. That's one of the easier streams that I do. So that seemed like a really good way to start things. We're going to do that on May 28th. So Constellation, The Adventures of the USS Mazu and its crew, coming May 28th to see what happens next. I don't know what's going to happen next. Oh, I got to figure that out. The Dominion of Esland is going to be back on June 23rd on Twitch. So on Twitch on June 23rd, Dominion of Esland will be back. I was hoping I could do that earlier, but in the midst of all this as well, I had to schedule a surgery for that week. So yeah, we're going to push that until the 23rd. So I have enough time to recover from that and get everybody back on schedule and go from there. So, and I'm going to start Twitch streaming again. Overwatch Wednesdays are going to be back. This Doesn't Suck will eventually be back. That one's a really hard one to get done. I'm looking at other ways I can handle it, but it is coming back as soon as I can figure it out. It is one of my favorite things to do, and it's so much fun. It'll come back. It won't be until probably July, though. So July-ish. We'll see what happens. There may be some cocktail videos coming out, though. I've got some in the can that I just haven't been able to edit because baby came early. So, all right, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching. I'm coming back. We're going to be back with more shows and more stuff. And, you know, we're going to keep rolling on with everything. There's just going to be a baby. You might hear a baby scream in the background every once in a while. That's just going to be new normal. You've heard cats before. Maybe there will be a baby every once in a while. It's life, man. Welcome to my world.